Hello, my name is Adam, and in this video we're going to be reading Colossians chapter 1 verses 15 to 20 together. Now hopefully you've seen the other videos that have come before this one, but just in case you haven't, let's talk about the context a little bit. This part of the Bible is a letter written by the Apostle Paul, who's someone who spent a lot of his life teaching people about Jesus, and he's writing it to a church in the ancient city of Colossae to encourage them in their faith. And earlier in the letter, we saw Paul write about the hope that we have in the good news of Jesus Christ, which is what we call the gospel, and how we should be thankful that God has taken us out of the kingdom of darkness and into the kingdom of the Son he loves. Well, without further ado, let's read Colossians chapter 1, 15 to 20 together. The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together, and he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Wow, right. So, what did I notice? Well, the first thing that I noticed is that this passage is all about Jesus and his majesty. That's why Paul starts it with, he is the image of the invisible God. He's talking about Jesus. And what follows there is this massive description of just how powerful and majestic Jesus is. He's all powerful. Jesus is the ultimate king who, by his power, looks after, cares for, and manages everything. All things have been created through Jesus, by Jesus, and for Jesus. That's huge. But the second thing that I've noticed is that Jesus is also shown to us to be the ruler of the church. The church owes its loyalty only to Jesus and to nothing else on this earth. No other person, no other government, only to Jesus. Now, it appears that Paul is putting Jesus' majesty and his power on display here. You know, Jesus is the all-powerful and almighty king of everything. But what does this king do with his power? Well, that's the third thing that I've noticed. He shed his blood on the cross. Shed his blood to make peace between everything in the world, including us, and God. How wonderful it is that this all-powerful king used his power to bring peace between us and God. Which leads me into my question that I have. Why was that necessary? Why did Jesus have to shed his blood on the cross? Well, if we go on reading Colossians, we'll actually get a very good answer to that question. But the fact that Jesus had to make peace between us and God implies that at one point we weren't at peace, right? It implies that at one point we were God's enemies, and that his death on the cross was necessary to make us into friends again, to bring peace. Now, there are many other questions that you might have about the passage, but that's the one that jumped into my mind. I'd be interested to hear what some of the questions you have are. Maybe we can talk about them together. But having thought about this, what do we need to do about this passage? Well, the first thing that I need to do is I need to recognize Jesus' ultimate majesty and power and put my trust only in him. And that's really comforting, especially in days like these days where there's so much uncertainty and so much feels like it's going wrong. Actually, Jesus is totally in control, and he is taking care of everything. So I need to stop and I need to sit down and think about that for a little bit and rest with that a little bit and remember that Jesus is in total control of the world and that in him all things hold together. But I also need to recognize Jesus' kingship over me, that I am one of his people in his kingdom, created by him and for him. So I better learn more about who he is, about what he has done for me, and what I, as one of his people, can do in this world. Well, thank you for watching. I hope that you've been encouraged by this read through of Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 to 20 together. It's my prayer for you and for me that we'll go on reading the Bible like this, that we won't stop here, but we'll continue reading, that we'll learn more about who our magnificent and majestic King Jesus is, and how we, as his people, can live in his world. Thank you for watching.